All right, so let's rethink our marketing metrics. So a little bit of background on myself. So I'm the CEO of Stratebeat. We're a branding and marketing firm in the Boston area. Also the founder of a neuro marketing group in the Boston area. We're close to 400 members now. We started about a year and a half ago. And at my prior agency, took the agency about 9 years to get to 85 employees. I was number 85. And then we rethought how the business was running. And we jacked it up to over 700 employees in 5 years. And as was mentioned, just published a book called Rethink Your Marketing. And so if you want to check it out, it's on Amazon. And one of the things that we're going to do today is walk through different scenarios with different types of companies, some of them small, some mid-sized, some Fortune 500 companies. Because really, when you look at these principles, it really doesn't matter what industry you're in, it doesn't matter what size of company it is, this is all very applicable. So one day at my previous agency, I received a call. And on the other line was the director of marketing at Barilla Pasta. And so she calls up, and just for anyone who isn't aware of Barilla, if you go into the local supermarket, you'll see their pasta lining the shelves. They're very popular, very high-end brand of pasta. They do all different types of pasta as well as sauces. And their ask for me was, hey, could you put together an SEO proposal for us? We'd like to drive more organic search traffic. So in that situation, I'd like to ask you what you would do. 99.999% of the time, the agency is going to submit an SEO proposal. But this is where I'd like you to take a step back and always, always, always think, what would I do if I were the CMO at the brand? So instead of thinking like a search engine marketer, instead of thinking like a social media marketer, instead of thinking like a content marketer, whatever category, whatever type of marketing you're doing, go outside of the box, think holistically, think laterally. If you were the CMO, what would you do? And that's what you have to do, whether it ties into your services or not. So they were looking at driving as much traffic as possible. So the success metrics that we were going to look at was, okay, here's the baseline of organic traffic, and we need to move the needle on SEO traffic. We need to drive as much traffic as possible. That's how they were going to measure success. So we asked for their web analytics, and the more that I dove into them, the more puzzled I became. Because it looked like people were not going beyond one page, no matter what page it was in the website. They might land on the home page, they might land on a landing page, they might land on a video page. It didn't matter. No one would go beyond one page. And then we looked at the video analytics. No one could even get to the end of one video. They were all incredibly boring. The website was boring. Everything about the brand in the website was boring. It was a horrible brand experience. And so remember what their ask was. They wanted us to drive as much traffic to this experience as possible. So if you have a client where the underlying metrics, the metrics of engagement, the metrics of what are they actually doing, what are the behavioral metrics in the website beyond just, say, looking at Google Analytics and seeing page views or looking at your SEO traffic numbers, right? If the underlying experience is a bad experience, if it's a subpar experience, essentially what that website is doing is advertising for the competition, right? Because everyone goes to more than one website when they're in a customer journey. Everyone. We all do it, right? We'll check out 3 or 4 or 5 brands. And so essentially, if your client or if your brand is delivering a poor experience, then you have to question all the metrics and question what exactly you're looking at and where you're going to move the needle. And so one of the first things that we like to do before just answering with what the client has requested is look at the audience. What does the audience want? Right? What do they enjoy? What would provide an excellent customer experience? And that's what we have to focus on. Remember what I said. Take a step back and think to yourself, if I were the CMO at that company, what would I do? And it wasn't SEO. That is not what they needed. If we drove a lot of organic traffic, let's say we doubled their organic traffic, it would have damaged their brand to no end because we would have been delivering a bad brand experience. And people don't forget that after a day. It lasts. It can last for years. it can last a lifetime. And so what we looked at was, okay, well, what's going on in the marketplace? And one of the things that we noticed was a big topic at the time, this was about 8 or 9 years ago, a big topic at the time in the news was the fragmentation of the family. Everyone was getting busier and busier and busier, and there was less time to eat together, eat at home. And Barilla is an Italian brand, and so we felt that they had an authentic right to the dining room table. You know, just picture like the Italian grandma coming in with a big plate of spaghetti and bringing the family together. And so we said, really, that's what your brand should be about. You should be all about bringing the family back to the dining room table. Let's make everything you do, the website, all of your marketing about this. And then through that, we can optimize the heck out of everything, and then you'll be driving the right traffic to the right experience. And so they loved the idea. They agreed completely that they were totally looking at the metrics the wrong way. They were looking at the wrong metrics, and they weren't looking at the right metrics. And so together, they brought in their PR firm as well, launched a new website, a revised, updated website. They also launched a microsite called Share the Table. This is still in existence today. This is 8 or 9 years later. How many campaigns do you run that run 8 or 9 years? Right? If we had simply supplied them with an SEO proposal, do you think that would have lasted 8 or 9 years worth of success? Of course not. And so, you know, it went well beyond just optimizing the microsite, optimizing the website, but how can we incorporate influencers and advocates? How can we bring more people into the conversation? How can we make everything as shareable as possible? So again, taking a step back, thinking, if I were the CMO, what would I do? Reshaping the brand, then we can do SEO. So if you're doing SEO, if you're doing content, if you're doing paid search, doesn't matter what you're doing, always think, what is the end experience that we want to achieve? And then how are we going to measure that experience? How are we going to measure that experience? And that's what should drive every decision in your process. So another brand called up, Nexus. It's a shampoo brand. If you go to a local pharmacy, Walgreens, CVS, you might see them on the shelves. Now, typically, when you're looking for shampoo, what do you pay? Maybe $3 or $4 or $5 a bottle. Nexus costs $18 a bottle. It's very expensive for what you would find in a pharmacy. And you know, they take a lot of pride in that, and that's really, you know, how they project their brand, whether we're looking at their website or whether we're looking on TV, whether we're looking at print. And how can they justify charging $18 a bottle? To them, they justify it through having superior ingredients. So they felt that their shampoo and conditioner ingredients were the best in the market. And that justified an $18 price point. And that's what all of their marketing centered on, all of it. Every message was about their ingredients. And so when they contacted us and they were interested, again, in driving traffic to their website, what they were going to measure was incremental traffic to the website. What we had to do first, again, was look at the customer. And we had to ask, what does the customer care about? What does the customer want? And then we have to map the metrics to what the customer cares about. So, okay, Nexus was really into ingredients, but myself and 2 colleagues of mine locked ourselves in a room, literally, we locked ourselves in a room. We bought as many fashion magazines and beauty magazines and all these different types of magazines that would give us insights into what people were talking about, what they were writing about, what the magazines were covering. We went online, went to all the competitors' websites, we went to all the industry websites, went to all the blogs, and for the entire day, we just immersed ourselves in the world of fashion and beauty, trying to figure out how people talk about hair. And what we found was there was not one conversation. We spent the entire day examining this. There was not one conversation that we could uncover, online or offline, that centered on ingredients. Not one. So what was it that people were talking about? It was hairstyles. Everyone, at the time, no shampoo brand was talking about hairstyles. This was several years ago. Now a lot of the brands have caught on. We were the first. So what we said was, look, if you look at any magazine, if you look at what bloggers are writing about, if you look at what people are sharing online, it's hairstyles. They want to know about wedding hairstyles and prom hairstyles and short hairstyles and long hairstyles and French braids and bobs and all these, it's just an endless list of different types of hairstyles, and that's what gets them excited, that's what gets them engaged, that's what gets them into a brand. So we looked at search volumes as well, and you can see hairstyles has over 5 million searches a year. Short hairstyles has close to 3 million. Cute hairstyles has over 1 million. On and on and on. The collective world of hairstyle keywords are searched on between 20 and 25 million times a year. That's a nice sized market to go after. Now, if you compare that to ingredients like methylparaben, first of all, I'm not even sure who's searching on that. And I doubt it's my sister. I doubt it's my next door neighbor. I doubt it's my mom. I'm betting it's scientists. That's who I think it is. But even so, what you'll find is with ingredients, the search volume is 10 to literally 60 times higher with hairstyles. And so it's very clear what people are interested in. If we look at social shares, so the most popular single piece of content around hairstyles that year, just one piece of content, had over 333,000 shares. Just one piece of content. The next, over 327,000. On and on and on. And these are single pieces of content. It tells you what people love, what they're passionate about, what they'll tell their friends about. And you compare that to an ingredient like methylparaben. Most popular had 14 shares. Next after that, 2. So if you're comparing something that has the potential to be shared over 300,000 times compared to 14 or 2, it's a slam dunk, right? And so Nexus loved it. They were fully bought in and completely revamped the website, came up with a hairstyles website, did video. They started cranking out video after video after video, totally centered on hairstyles. They changed their TV advertising. They changed their print advertising. They changed everything about everything that they talked about to talk about hairstyles. And this pervaded absolutely everything they did, even beyond the marketing department. It became their persona. And it's even today when you go on Nexus, they're still talking about hairstyles years later. The end result, we 10x'd everything across the board. Whether you're talking about site traffic, whether you're talking about engagement metrics, whether you're talking about video views, it didn't matter. We 10x'd everything. Now, what if all we had done was give them a proposal to increase traffic to a site that was talking about ingredients? Yeah, we might have increased traffic. I'm sure all of us could have done that, right? Anyone can just increase traffic. But again, I want to request that you think, okay, if I was the CMO, what would I do? And it has to be that big picture type of thinking that's then going to drive the strategy. It can't be, oh, I want to increase my organic traffic, and that's what's driving the strategy. That's backwards, and it doesn't work. So I want to tell you also about fulcrum and lever marketing. I love this. So think of, if there's a big boulder, if you just went up to it and you tried and push it, you probably couldn't move it, right? But if you have a lever, right, it's much easier to move it. And the longer the lever, the easier it gets. And so whenever you find that single metric in the range of metrics that you're looking at, try and apply the fulcrum and lever approach to see how far you can take it. So I'm going to try and pronounce his name, but I might not do so well on this. But Chamath Palihapitiya, he was in charge of growth years ago at Facebook. And what he noticed was, obviously Facebook was growing rapidly, and Facebook is very data-driven, right? Their whole marketing team is very data-driven. But what he noticed was they were chasing every single metric you can imagine. They were looking at every piece of data and trying to make use of it. And he said, it didn't work. It didn't work. And instead, what he realized was everything revolved around a North Star metric. If they could just change this this one metric, if they changed the numbers on this one metric, it would move mountains. And all the others were just noise. It was just noise if they didn't change this number. And what it was a new person who joined Facebook needed to have 7 friends within 10 days. If they could achieve that, they would be a long-time user and highly engaged user of Facebook. If they did not achieve 7 friends in 10 days, they would never come back. And so he said they could optimize and optimize and optimize everything, but if the person's not coming back, they're not coming back. And it didn't matter. The other metrics didn't matter. So he managed a team of 140 growth marketers. He had all 140 focus on this one metric, this one North Star metric. That's all they focused on. If someone had a new marketing idea, it had to ladder up to this one metric. And look at Facebook's growth. It's pretty undeniable. So there's another client of ours, which was a property management software company. And we were doing various types of digital marketing for them. And one of those channels that we were using, one of the vehicles, was paid search. And we found that by optimizing on a daily basis, so in other words, looking at the entire week and seeing where exactly the conversions occurred, we identified that I believe it was Fridays and Saturdays and Sundays were just dead. And so we actually shut down the campaign during those days, completely, 100%. And all the metrics went up. Our success metrics actually went up. Why? Because we were funneling all of that wasted budget into budget that moved the needle, into budget that converted at a much faster rate, at a much higher rate. And so it was excellent. And we were all patting ourselves on the back, oh, this was a great idea. But then we thought, what if we're missing something? What if there's more to be done here? What if we didn't take it far enough? And so we looked at hourly optimization, and we were right. We had gotten it wrong. There was more to do. Because what we found was, instead of optimizing by day and shutting off the campaign during certain days and funneling the budget to the most productive days, what we did was we looked at it in hourly increments. And we shut it down. It didn't matter what day of the week it was. Monday, Wednesday, we didn't care. We shut the whole campaign down during low-performing hours, and then we funneled more budget into the higher-performing hours. And we turned back on the days that we had shut off before, and instead, 100% applied an hourly approach to optimization. The net effect, we increased conversions by 140%. So actual conversions increased by 140%. So sometimes you may have achieved success, but what I want to ask you to do is take a step back and just question yourselves. Rethink what you're doing. What if you did the opposite? And sometimes it's very eye-opening. So vanity versus clarity metrics. So Lloyd Tabb is in charge of marketing at the analytics and BI platform Looker Analytics. And one thing which was interesting was he started noticing a lot of companies in the tech space were focused on vanity metrics. And a lot of this was driven by VCs. VCs were questioning and driving entrepreneurs to focus on very, very specific metrics. And for Looker, the metric was daily active users. And they were saying, look, you have to drive up your daily active users as much as possible. And no matter what the company wanted to do, so in this case it was a recruitment platform, and it didn't matter what they wanted to bring to the table, it didn't matter what they wanted to talk about, the VCs only wanted to talk about daily active users. So they focused on daily active users like crazy. And it was successful. They were able to acquire 33 million daily active users within 2 years. The VCs were thrilled. They gave them $49 million as a reward. $49 million of VC money for following this metric. So you think that they're a $10 billion company right now, right? Nope. They fell down to earth very, very quickly. Why? Because even though they were focused on one metric, they forgot to look at what could derail this metric. Even if this metric was successful, what are the metrics that can totally undercut you at the knees? And in this case, it was churn. And what they found was, once they finally realized it, although they were bringing on tons and tons of new customers, daily active customers, right? Everyone was leaving. Everyone hated it. So their churn rate was way too high, and it was leaving a bad taste in people's mouths. People had a bad impression of them. They started sharing that socially, and so the ripple effect was amplified. And so according to Tab, what he recommends is, no matter what North Star metric you have, no matter what single metric you might be prioritizing, always, always, always find an inverse. Find what can derail that metric as well. So kind of taking the North Star idea to another level by layering in the opposite. So how many of you look at web analytics like Google Analytics? How many of you use Google Analytics? Okay, so almost everyone in the room. Almost everyone in the room uses Google Analytics. And that's great, right? But if you're only relying on Google Analytics, for example, to judge the success of a website, you are going to be very, very frustrated, and you're going to be treading water a lot, and you're going to be confused, not understanding why, because you're looking at the metrics, right? But here's the problem. You're not looking at all the metrics that tell the full story. So what we want to do is, no matter what marketing you're doing, you need to layer in behavioral analytics. And I say you need to because it can change the game completely for you. So for example, if you have any type of conversion point, let's say it's a B2B site, you have a form, that's critical for you to drive leads, right? So with behavioral analytics, this is an application called Mouseflow, but there are many, many of these applications out there. Hotjar, Concura, many options. And they're all fantastic. So our agency, Strategy, uses Mouseflow. And one of the things that you can do is you can actually look at each field in the form, in every single form in the website, to see where exactly people are falling off. And that tells you what you need to adjust in the form. Either you need additional explanatory text, or you might need to delete that field out of your form, or you might need to prime them a different way to fill out the form. Now let's say that we're not talking about something as simplistic as having a form right there, right? It's not as straightforward. It might not be as straightforward what a success is on that page. So let's just take a blog post, right? So you have a blog post, and let's say it's 1,000 words or 1,500 words. How the heck are you going to look at that, right? Well, behavioral analytics, right? Because page views are only going to tell you how many people visited the page. And so let's take a look at a blog post, and this is applying scrolling analytics, okay? So how far down the page did they actually scroll? So I don't care what Google Analytics tells me in terms of page views, because quite frankly, it's irrelevant. We had a client who was bragging about one section of their website which had massive page views. And when we applied the behavioral analytics, what we realized was it was actually a failure. Because although they were driving lots of traffic to that section of their website, people were not taking the actions that they wanted them to take on these pages. They were not scrolling down far enough, so they were missing half the content. They weren't clicking where they wanted them to click. They weren't hovering where they wanted them to hover. They weren't, the attention was not where they wanted it to be. And so Google Analytics will tell you one side of the story, which is great, but you need to fill in the blanks. So in this case, okay, we're looking at how far down they're scrolling down the page. This is the top of the page. It's red. That means that they're the most engaged, but of course, because that's where you land. So it's always going to be red. Okay, so people start scrolling down, and it's still red. Good, good. Uh-oh, okay, so we're scrolling down the page, and now we see that the percentage of people looking at this part of the page has dipped. And then again, when it gets to the green, it dips again. And the software will tell you the exact percentages of how many people are viewing these pages. And then, just as a side note, you can actually also look at the live video views of these experiences going through your site, of actual users. These are not test users. This is actual live data of live users on your website. There's no better data than that. And you're not going to get that from Google Analytics in this way in terms of understanding their behavior. And so we keep going down the page, right? Oh, and I'm just going to go back a second to point something out. So, okay, so we keep going down the page, and there are different tiers of where people fall off the page in terms of what they are reading. So you can see a big dip where we get to authenticity. Now, this post is about branding. This particular paragraph where a lot of people fell off, and a lower percentage of the audience was viewing was authenticity. So you might immediately come to the conclusion, okay, well the scrolling data is telling me that no one cares about authenticity. We're not going to write about that anymore. We're going to delete this off the page, right? And maybe you come up with other CTAs or other content there. But again, what we want to do is have as much cross-referenceable data as possible. So if we look at what people were most engaged with in the blog post, again, we're just looking at simple text. This can be applied to anything. What had the most engagement? Where were people most engaged? The authenticity paragraph. So if you had only looked at the scrolling data, you would have been mistaken in thinking we have to delete that off the page. And if you had, all of these people would not have engaged with your brand as much. And so use as much behavioral data as you can, whether it's click data, whether it's heat mapping, whether it's scroll data, whether it's watching actual live user sessions. It's all fantastic in helping you understand what's truly resonating and what's not, rather than just looking at Google Analytics and guessing. So another thing that you can do with this type of software is you can map where the cursor is on the page as they're going through the experience. And so you'll actually see the cursor moving on the page in the same timing as they were using it. So if they hover over an area for a while, you'll see that. If they're going faster and they're not reading the content and they're scrolling down, you'll see that. And so typically what we find with blog posts is the most common type of cursor movement is where it's going vertically, up and down. Makes sense, right? And it's interesting that people do go back up. But what we found was, on this particular blog, where we had a video, look at the cursor movement. It went berserk. It went crazy. It was going all over the place. And so clearly the person was more engaged. They probably didn't even realize what they were doing with the cursor, and they were probably leaning in and really getting into the content. And then we said, okay, well, what about our other blog posts? What about videos there? Same exact behavior. And so what we realized was, okay, we need to 10x the video content in order to capitalize on this, because this gets engagement. Whether they click on the video or not, that was also very interesting. So just want to leave you with this. So I mentioned that I wrote a book called Rethink Your Marketing. And just as I'm asking you to rethink how you view your marketing metrics and the insights that you derive out of your marketing insights and the strategies that you develop out of your marketing insights, what I'll ask you to do is rethink all of your marketing. And so if you're interested in this type of holistic view of marketing, this type of lateral thinking, you can download a free first chapter of the book. Just go to rethinkyourmarketing.com/Confluence 17. So again, rethinkyourmarketing.com/Confluence 17, and you can have a free first chapter. I also brought along a couple of copies, so if anyone's interested, just hunt me down, and I'll be happy to give it to you. So thank you very much.